Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Su-Nee from Nanyang Technological University Library, and welcome to the session today that is organized by the Libraries for Research Data Interest Group. And today we will be discussing the topic of libraries as enablers of open research communities. Okay, so today we have quite a number of speakers from various places. Before we begin, we'd like to do an acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge and celebrate the first Australians on whose traditional lands we meet, and we pay our respect to their elders, past and present. And a big warm welcome to new RDA members. Please make it as interactive as possible. And we'd like to invite you to scan the QR code that will bring you to the collaborative notes on Google Doc. All right? So take a moment, just scan the QR code. I understand that we have online participants as well. Please scan the QR code. Or you can use the shortened link, bit.ly/2025_L4RD. Please update the table in the collaborative notes to indicate your attendance. For people online, you're most welcome to enter your questions or comments in the collaborative notes. Of course, people physically present here are most welcome to contribute in the Google Doc as well. All right? And if you like to take the mic, please feel free to raise your hand and someone will come to you with a microphone. We need you to speak into the microphone so that the people online can hear you as well. Sorry about that. Yeah. We'd like to introduce you the co-chairs of the Libraries for Research Data Interest Group. So today, and we have quite a few new people, so they just joined us over the past 1 to 2 years, so we'd like to introduce them to you. And we would also like to take the opportunity to introduce you the different speakers who will be sharing their experiences on stakeholder engagement in the building of fair care, trust, data infrastructures and environments, research data training, stewardship, and data management planning. At the same time, we would like to ask for contributions of ideas, suggestions, volunteers to contribute to the Libraries for Research Data Interest Group activities. All right, so if you have some idea for a webinar or whatever presentation you would like to do, we can help organize together with you, talk to us. So put in your ideas, suggestions in the Google Doc as well. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to introduce you the chairs of this interest group. So we have John Brown from Curtin University. I don't think John is here with us today. Okay. We have Tim Dennis from University of California, Los Angeles Library. We have Dr. Naresh Kumar from University of Nizwa from Oman. Su-Nee, that's myself. Jennifer, can I just introduce you, Jennifer? Jennifer is over there. She's from Hong Kong University of Science and Technology Library. Okay, sorry about the Naresh, it's repeated. We have Susanna from Tampere University Library. She's not able to join us today. Last but not least, we have Reni. Yeah, hi Reni. Yeah. So she's from UCL and also from BRIN, Indonesia. Okay, we are good to proceed with our first presenter. Okay, may I invite Reni to present? Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Reni. Today I'll be presenting our findings that explored how data librarians collaborate with other professionals in providing RDM services, during which we created personas of data librarians. But first of all, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners, the Tebal and Agara people of the land that we are meeting on today in Brisbane, Yanjin, and pay my respect to the elders past and present. And a little about me, I call myself my own data champion because I wear 3 hats. I am a data librarian, an open science advocate, and a researcher pursuing a doctoral degree in RDM and open science. So this is the agenda, including 4 distinct data librarian personas which can be used for professional development and service delivery in academic and research libraries. The motivation for this study stems from significant changes in the research landscape, such as global initiatives, recommendations, and mandates. Academic and research libraries with their proven track record in managing institutional knowledge are responding by expanding these services into RDM. However, unlike traditional library services, RDM often requires data librarians to work collaboratively with other specialists in what we call team science environments. Despite this growing trend, there was limited systematic understanding of how data librarians perceive and practice interprofessional collaboration. This gap in knowledge motivated our research team to conduct this study. And our study had 3 primary objectives that built upon each other systematically. First, we wanted to examine how data librarians view their roles when providing what we call immersive RDM services. These are advanced services where librarians become integral part of the research teams rather than just providing consultative support. And second, we aim to develop data-driven personas that could capture the data librarians' distinct characteristics and approaches. Finally, we sought to understand how this insight could inform both theoretical frameworks and practical improvement in service delivery. So the key focus was on interprofessional collaboration practice, or IPCP, a concept we borrowed from healthcare sector. And unlike their thorough examination where multiple professionals such as doctors, radiographers, nurses collaborate to accomplish a common objective, for them, the focus is on the patient's health. And for us, it revolves around reproducible research. Also for the notes, the study represents the initial quantitative phase of a large sequential explanatory mixed methods research. So what I'm sharing with you are the initial results from the first phase of the study. We employed a robust quantitative approach using an online survey distributed through professional association and mailing lists. We deliberately chose not to restrict participation geographically, so we did see heavier representation from the global north because the survey form is in English. The survey integrated 2 established frameworks, the PINCOM key, which measures perception of interprofessional collaboration and has been widely used in healthcare research, and the Library Research Data Service Partnership Framework. After thorough data cleaning to remove incomplete responses, we retained 158 high-quality responses. And then we used K-modes clustering for categorical data to identify distinct groups of data librarians based on their characteristic and collaboration approaches. The interesting part is that this quantitative approach addressed a significant gap in the literature, as most previous studies on library collaboration have been qualitative in nature. So let me share the key demographic findings that provide important context for our personas development. Geographically, we have strong representation from developed countries, which reflects the maturity of RDM services in these regions. And interestingly, while most participants had extensive library experience, they were mostly at mid-level positions, specifically in RDM services, and held advanced degrees, suggesting that this is still a relatively emerging specialization with interdisciplinary nature of the role. And most significantly, over 84% were providing advanced RDM services, and about half were engaged in advanced forms of collaboration, indicating the sophistication of services being offered and the collaborative nature of the work. And our cluster analysis revealed 4 distinct personas of data librarians, each representing different approaches to interprofessional collaboration. These personas were not evenly distributed. We had roughly equal representation across the 4 groups, ranging from 35 to 45 individuals per cluster. What's particularly interesting is what distinguishes these groups versus what they shared in common. The key differentiating factor were geographic region, level of experience in RDM, their collaboration practices, and most importantly, their perception of interprofessional collaboration. However, they were remarkably similar in their professional titles, educational backgrounds, and the level of services they offered. This suggests that the differences lie not in their formal qualification or service capabilities, but in their collaborative approach and attitudes. And each persona represents a different philosophy and practice of working with other professionals in the research ecosystem. So let me introduce you to the first 2 personas in detail. So the integrated collaborator, represented by Nico, embodies someone who has successfully integrated into research team, but maintains a somewhat independent working style. His data science credential make him valuable for technical complex project, but he tends to work within established network rather than actively seeking new collaborative relationship. In contrast, the strategic collaborator, Demi, represents the most collaboration-forward personas. He not only embraces interprofessional collaboration, but actively seeks opportunities to work strategically across disciplinary boundaries. And the third persona, specialist collaborator, Mira, represents the highly specialized expert. Her neutral stance in interprofessional collaboration reflect her role as more of a consultant than a fully integrated team member. And finally, the advocate collaborator, Mike, represents the emerging professional who sees collaboration as fundamentals to the future of RDM services. Working in an institution still developing its RDM capabilities, Mike is actively building his collaborative skills and advocates for enhanced services through partnership. So these personas have significant practical implications across multiple levels. For professional development, for example, advocate collaborators might benefit from leadership development, while specialist collaborators might need training in broader collaborative communication skills. And at the institutional level, an institution in the early stage of RDM development might prioritize hiring advocate collaborators who can build programs from the ground up, while established services might benefit from strategic collaborators who can optimize existing partnership. And for our field more broadly, this research provides an evidence-based foundation for understanding interprofessional collaboration data librarianship and highlights the need for more focused research in the developing regions where RDM services are still emerging. So this study makes several important contributions to our understanding of data librarianship and interprofessional collaboration, most significantly the use of quantitative analysis to systematically identify the distinct personas among data librarians. However, we must acknowledge important limitation, especially the underrepresentation of librarians from the Global South, which reflects broader inequities in research participation and RDM service development. Moving forward, we need targeted research in underrepresented regions to understand contexts that shape collaborative practice. Finally, this work provides a foundation for developing more effective evidence-based approaches to interprofessional collaboration in RDM or data librarianship, which is increasingly critical as the demands for open science and data sharing continue to grow globally. Well, I think that's all that I want to share. Thank you for your attention. This work is part of my ongoing doctoral research. I am now in the second phase of my sequential explanatory mix method, so I really welcome your inputs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Branny. Any questions from the floor? Or any comments? We have some time to take a question or two. Yes.
Harun here. Harun here from the Australian Research Council. One thing with the libraries, sorry, just to be clear, I might have missed this. When you're referring to libraries, you're referring to the libraries that publish research outputs. You're not referring to the you're not referring to research data libraries. Is that correct?
Yeah, so my subject participant is data librarians, and it's defined as someone who is the stewarding and curating the data, research data. So it can be anyone who is working in under library, academic and research library management. So as long as they have repositories, data repositories in any kind of topic or subject, so they are my subject participants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Anyone else? Any comments?
Yeah, and also I want to add about the titles. When I get the participants, they have so many different titles: research data librarians, data stewards, etc. So it's kind of, yeah, very. Thank you.
No, please continue, because you are basically answering the question I was about to ask. So there's more and more definitions coming up, also from the RDA, about the professions of data stewards versus data librarians, data counselors, many new positions that are being defined in an emerging manner. So I wanted to know, have you incorporated these definitions in the study, and how does the personas articulate with those definitions? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. Yeah, I struggle when I try to find the definition of data librarians, but I always refer and contextualize my subject participants as long as they are working under academic and research library. So in my survey, the first question is, are you working under academic and research libraries? If different organization has different structures, some of them are under research office, in the university, or other definitely under library management, so they will be excluded. Thank you.
I'm just looking at the Google Doc. No one asked questions in the Google Doc yet. Yeah. So we invite online participants to put in your comments or questions too. Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much, Rennie.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, a round of applause for Rennie, please. Yeah. Okay, I'd now like to invite Jennifer Gu, Research Support Librarian from Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. She's also co-chair for the Libraries for Research Data Interest Group. Jennifer, please. Thanks.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So this is Jennifer from the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology Library. So my job title, sorry, I'm having a cold. So my job title is a Research Support Librarian at my library. And then today I want to share a case study from my library, which is on the dynamic of the research data sharing. And I want to analyze the research papers, data availability statement in our faculty's papers. So let me start with the background. Everyone in this floor and also online colleagues know that research data has been gaining lots of importance in recent years. And then there has been an increasing demand or mandate from the publishers or the funders to require the section of data availability statement in their research output. So my research question is actually very simple, that I want to harvest our faculty's work and then try to see how they write that section, and then try to see if there's any pattern or any correlation between having that section and the open access status or their citation impact. So I want to share the outline. So I will start with the data collection part and then share the findings. And then later, if there's time, I will share some of the recommendations from my findings. So the data source is from OpenAlex. I chose this over Web of Science or Scopus is because this is open. It's also part of the Open Access Initiative, and then it has more coverage. So my selection criteria is from the recent 5 years in English journal articles, and then of course the papers should be affiliated with our institution. So the total number of papers covered is around 16,000 papers. And then the key metadata drawn from the OpenAlex is including publication year, publisher's name, citation count, OA status, topic domain, and also topic field. And also I went to the full text or the metadata record if there's open information about the data availability statement. So in total, I accessed almost all of the papers, OA or through the paywall route. Only around 300 were not covered because we don't have access or there are some broken links. So it's only 2% is not checked. So let's get to see the, and one more thing, is the DAS classification. So this is some metadata that I added to my data set. So first of all, I need to assign like whether the DAS is available or not. So that's labeled with true or false. And then I came up with this 6 type category. So this is not according to the like available framework or standard. So I defined 6 types. The first one is not applicable. So this is different from blank. So that means the researcher specifically indicated that the data is not available for that research. The second type is restricted, and then the third one is upon request. The fourth one is mentioned in the paper or supplementary information or in the reference list. The fifth one is they mentioned that their data is deposited in a certain repository. And then the last one, type 6, is obtained from other resources. And also I did some entity recognition for the mentioned repositories. So that could be like Zenodo or DataSpace, etc. Okay, so let's take a look at the key findings. So of all the papers, it seems like most of it's quite dominant that the top 20 publishers count for 92 of the all papers. So you can see this bar chart, and then the green ones stand for DAS true. That means there is a section from the papers published in a certain publisher. The red one means there's no availability of that section, and then the smaller part in the gray one is the one that I didn't check. Okay, and then you can see the further breakdown of the top 10 publisher. So that's a year-on-year DAS availability by the top 10 publishers. And then from here, I can start to see some insights. For example, you can see Springer Nature, American ACS, and also, for example, the American Physical Society. They start to have a slight an increase in the green part, the percentage of an increase in the DAS. That also correlates with their publishing policy. That means they started to enforce the authors to include that section. And then I do recommend you to visit the Publisher DAS Policy Index by Chorus, because they do have a good curated list of the key publishers, and then they also mention their the data availability mandate from that service. So it's very encouraging to see there are more publishers recognizing the importance, and then so my results do correlate with that mandate. And you can also still see there are some publishers that haven't really joined the section yet. Okay. I need to hurry up. And then, so if we look at the data availability by topic domain, then we'll see it's the medicine, the biology, and the environmental science that are having the higher DAS adoption, so over 50%. Okay, and then looking at the breakdown by open access status, it's quite not surprising to see that open access papers are more likely to have the DAS section, and then it seems like OA and the data availability go hand in hand to support open science. And this is a correlation study on the citation advantage for OA papers and papers with the DAS. So I think it's the image on the top is about the citation counts, average citation counts in relation to whether a DAS is available or not. And it's quite surprising to see that there is a significant difference between true or false in the DAS availability. And for papers with a DAS, it shows higher, roughly 25% of more citations for the papers with a DAS. And then it's a little bit surprised to me that for the recent 5-year papers from our university, it seems like there's no difference in the open access as a factor. So I want to look more into that factor, in fact. And if you look at the DS type breakdown by the topic domain, unfortunately, still the open upon request and in-paper and supplement is still the dominant type of how they want to review, disclaim their data availability. And here is talking about how many. I'm almost done. So how many papers indicate that they have deposited data to the repositories. So actually, it's only a very small portion, less than 20%, and it shows a big gap. And here is the reason for restricting the research data. And then I leveraged ChatGPT to help me find those themes. And then the key concern is about privacy and ethical issues. And some people will require collaboration in return to share their research data. And here is the top 30 repositories mentioned. It's very diverse, and you can see there's a very, it's not technically a long tail, but the others repository actually account for, indicates actually researchers share on a variety of repositories for their research data. So the last slide is my recommendations for the researchers, publishers, and libraries. So that's the end of my session. Thank you very much, and then I'm open to questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Yes, we have a hand put up at the back of the room. We also have received a question in the Google Doc, so we'll come to that after this.
Thank you very much. Very interesting talk. I just wanted to ask if you published this work as a published paper already.
No, not yet.
That we could cite.
At my library, we have a scholarly communication blog called Research Bridge. I actually did a very much smaller scale study, 2 years before, and then at that time I was only looking at the BMC and I think Nature publications. So in that paper blog, I only searched for 300 papers, and then this one is a much larger scale, and then I think it's more comprehensive, and also just after 2 years, when I revisit this similar topic, I'm very happy to see that I do personally see a larger uptake in having the DS. So yeah, I'm thinking about publishing it somewhere. Okay. Thank you for your question.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. We do look forward to the publication. Yeah. The questions online are coming in very actively. The first one is asking for the repository classification. Do you make a distinction if it's university, institutional repositories, or general open repositories like Zenodo or OSF?
Not yet. It's only by the name. Yeah, so haven't really grouped them by institution or by subject.
Okay, got it. Okay. Yes.
Thanks. So in terms of pulling out the data availability statement from the articles, does it have to be quite explicit within the text that this is the data availability statement, or can I pull it out from just random pieces of text?
Yeah, the data collection part is really technical. I normally start with one publisher and analyze, try to get an idea of what is the HTML tag for the relevant section. And then normally that can solve the, I know how normally it's, sometimes the publisher will say data availability statement, sometimes it's availability of data and code, something like that. So I need to understand per each major publisher. And then for the smaller one, it involves a lot of manual check. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for the question. Yes, Kelsey, and then we'll come to you.
Somewhat related to what you were just saying, that some publishers may require data sharing, others code sharing, some a combination. Did you do any analysis on whether these data availability statements included code, were specifically about code? That jumped out at me in particular, given the prevalence of GitHub in repository data sharing, which of course some researchers may use for data sharing as well. But I wonder if that indicates that there's more code sharing going on in this data set rather than data sharing?
I see. Thank you for your question. I didn't specifically split data availability and code availability. And then I do encounter some papers have another section for code availability. I didn't have a chance to look at them yet. And then I do include some of the code availability in this study. Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, my name is, thank you, first of all, for a great talk. I can't wait to cite this data myself. My name is Amy Nernberger. I'm from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. So one of the things I'm wondering if you're thinking about, first on your recommendation, can you go to your recommendation slide again?
Okay.
Thank you. So one of the things I would encourage you to do, if you haven't already, is of course reach out to the publisher's data availability statements outputs coming out of the RDA group as a great piece of work to encourage researchers to do this, both the libraries and to the researchers as well as publishers and funders for what those elements are. But I had a question for my own institution is we find that we have a lot of members of the community who are editors on journals. Mm-hmm. And when you're giving recommendations to researchers, is this part of your consideration, like what role they play in the journal itself besides simply being an author, but as well as that space of being an editor or being a reviewer in that journal in terms of how they might influence the data availability statements?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's a very good suggestion. Thank you. Yes, no? Yeah, I mean that's a very insightful thinking sort of food for me to try to bring this topic or what I find to my faculty members, especially those carrying the editor's role. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we have one question here. Then I will go to the online questions.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Diana Roach, and I come from Barcelona. I was wondering, related to the list of top 30 repositories, most of them, they were related to some specific disciplines, and they are the most well-known. So how can you feel the bias or the non-existing data or, many related issues in terms of gender data, in terms of indigenous communities, marginalized collectivities that are not there? And because I think that it's great what you presented, but it's somehow biased. It's not because of you, but it's because of the structures we already have. So how can your research contribute to fill these gaps?
I think I can start to look into the papers that it's categorized with the upon request, and also the ones mentioned that the data is within the paper, and then to see what is the hidden information that is not shared. It's to compare those with the ones that are mentioned in those renowned repositories. Yeah, that's a... Okay,
thank you very much. We do have a couple of more questions online. Could you elaborate on the correlation between the DAS percentage and the open access nature of the publications journals?
Okay. And here the charts, you see there's the range stands for I think it's the standard error. So that's some of the statistical bit. And then by the coefficient Logsdale factor, so you can see the p-value suggests that one factor, which is the DAS statement, is a significant significant difference, and then the other one, at least in my case, it's the open access is not a real factor in indicating the citation advantage, which is contradictory to many of the available literature actually. So that's quite surprising.
Okay, I think we may have time for just last two online questions. Okay, how does the variability of the different methods of DAS reflect to internal university policies on sharing the data? How researchers are guided to share their data?
At my institution, unfortunately, we don't have a research data policy in place, and then that's why, I'm also very interested to see if there are any comparison or future studies from another institution to see are we falling behind or are we doing just fine, and then, even though we don't have the research data policy in place, we do promote the FAIR and FAIR data principles, and also the writing of a DMP to our faculty and also the student, the research student. And we also have our own research data repository on the Dataverse. So this study is also a good case study for me to know our faculty or students' publication practice, and then so that I know what is lacking and what I can improve.
Okay, last one, thank you. With the large amount of data available on request in the DAS statements, did you try to see how many of these would provide data? Any thoughts on how likely your researchers are to respond to these requests? Have you tried to break these down by publisher field?
No, not yet done, but I've came across several publications already trying to do pilot, they will really ask the researchers to send their data, and then the result is very the responsive rate is super low. Yeah, I think I came across several studies on that.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. So a big thank you to the participants online for asking the very difficult but important questions. Okay.
Thank you.
So let's move on to Gerry. Gerry is the research data librarian from University of New South Wales, Australia. He's going to share with us implementing PIDs for research instrumentation into library infrastructures.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. Okay, hi everyone. So yes, my name is Gerry Devine. I'm a research data librarian at UNSW down in Sydney. And today I'm talking about implementing PIDs for research instrumentation into library infrastructures. This is a relatively small piece of work as part of a much larger research data project that's currently going on at UNSW. And the goal of this specific piece of work is we wanted to investigate how we can use existing library platforms, so the platforms we have in place at the moment, how they can be used to capture information about research instrumentation. And from that information, how can we then allocate persistent identifiers to that instrumentation. The rationale for that, I'm sure you're all probably guessing already, but yes, we know that research instruments are poorly represented in the scholarly records, and because of that, it's hard to track where they've been used, it's hard to track the impact of those instruments, and importantly, it's hard to get an idea of the return on investment. But also from a FAIR perspective, we want to be able to, for example, in the case of research data, we want to be able to say what was the instrument, for example, that created a specific piece of research data. So as I said here, instruments, capturing those instruments in the record is critical for research reproducibility, but also the provenance of things like research data. So caught into FAIR. Very complex diagram. This is our current PIDs, and sorry, I keep forgetting. Yeah. So this is quite a complex diagram. PIDs, sorry, I should have actually said at the start, I'm just assuming everyone knows PIDs, persistent identifiers. But this diagram is our current PID landscape at UNSW. I don't expect you to read all of this. It's just to show that we actually have quite a mature PID landscape at UNSW Library currently. But to summarize this diagram, we have two primary platforms. So we have our research management system, ROS, which is built on symplectic elements, which maybe some of you here also use. And we also have our institutional repository, UNSWorks, which is built on DSpace 7. Again, it's possible that some of you already use that within your own institutes. And flowing through those platforms, we've got a range of PIDs already. So we've got various DOIs that come into these systems or are generated in these systems. We bring in ORCIDs for our researchers. We also have RORs. They flow through, and they actually also go out into the discovery platforms downstream of our platforms. So this work, getting instruments into the mix, we were very keen to extend our PIDs. So we're looking now at instruments. And there is a standard for instruments out there called PID-Inst, PIDs for instrumentation. You can read about it here. But as you would expect here on the right, this is the main fields that are part of that PID-Inst standard or PID-Inst schema. So as you would expect for an instrument, you're expecting to give a name, the owner, manufacturer, information about the instrument model, a description, the sorts of variables that it spits out or maybe analyzes, as well as identifiers, related identifiers to that instrument. So what we wanted to do, as the title of the talk suggests, is how can we collect this information, particularly using the platforms we already have. So we have Symplectic Elements, which is our research management system. So what we did is, can we create a form, essentially a metadata form within ROS to collect this information? So in the first instance, we were able to create a bespoke form for the idea of a research instrument. And here's a dummy example that we put in place, for example. It gets you some of the way there. So we're able to use this form within our existing platform to collect information about the instrument in line with that PID-Inst schema. So that's good. However, that's only part of the story. We then want to go further and take that information and get a PID for it. Now, the PIDs for instruments, for PID-Inst, are backed by DOI, and that's where the limitations now begin to come in. The limitations in using something like symplectic elements for instrument metadata and PID allocation. One, just to start off, for anyone here who does already have raw or elements in place at their institution, ROS does have a native instrument type, so it's already there. But what we found is it's relatively simple, and it's not really suffice for example, when you get into the PID space. Hence the reason why we came up with our own form, as I just showed. And importantly, there's limited flexibility in the forms, and in particular, hierarchical form structure. And what I mean by that is, if you go back and look in more detail at the actual PID-Inst schema, it's not just a flat list of metadata elements. It's actually hierarchical in nature. So as one example, and again, don't worry about the details of this, I just want to get across the idea that, for example, in the PID-Inst schema, an instrument can have one or many manufacturers associated with it, and each of those manufacturers can have further information, more detailed information. So for example, it can have multiple identifiers of different types. So that represents then a limitation back on what is a relatively flat form that we can set up in ROS, because you can't capture this hierarchical metadata format in a relatively God, you've thrown me for 2 minutes. In a flat form that the ROS has. So moving on, so also importantly, and as you expect, we want to get that PID. As we said, the PID-Inst is backed by DOI. ROS doesn't currently have any integration with DataCite. We want to be able to send that information up to DataCite to get the DOI, or the instrument DOI, the PID-Inst, back as the identifier for that instrument. That's not currently in place, so we're also stuck there. And especially for us, we don't have any public pages. Our ROS implementation, or elements implementation, doesn't have public pages. So importantly, to get an identifier or a PID, you need a landing page. You need somewhere for that PID to point to, and it should be public. We don't have that, so again, it's another barrier to using ROS. I'm going to just quickly wrap up then. I should be in good time. So these are next steps, but more maybe discussion points. So I only touched today on ROS, the Symplectic Elements platform. I also mentioned we do also have our institutional repository, DSpace. So we will start to investigate the use of DSpace. We already know that DSpace will offer extra functionality, which may make it a better solution Just the idea that DSpace, for example, we have an integration with data sites so we can send that information off, get our DOI back. Excuse me. A discussion point is, well, what do we do in terms of, for example, the rawness idea, the symplectic elements idea? Do we push, for example, do we push the vendors, in this case symplectic, to improve the functionality around things like instrument PIDs or the various other PIDs that are out there? And my final question is the library the best place to do this? We are still questioning that, but I'll leave that there as a discussion point. And with that, thank you.
Thank you very much, Gerry.
Okay, thank you. It's kind of interesting topic because I just attended FAIR facility and instrument workshop in Colorado, Boulder. And we talked a lot about this one. Part of it is because data doesn't happen without instrument or facility, and a lot of them, they don't get acknowledged. And the one way to get acknowledged is through PIDs, as you mentioned, but the way you capture PID is in a data repository because it doesn't work as in silo. So the limitation to that, unfortunately, is a lot of data repository does not have a field for it. So, you know, for example, I'm going to give Mendeley data as an example. So you can put related links, but they give you only 3 choices for resource type: publication, data set, or software. So where do we put, you know, instrument or a facility, for example? Instrument also has an additional issue because data set has the instrument as a resource type. But in social science, instrument means instrument survey instrument. So I think we need to kind of differentiate those two so that they might have to sort it out. Because if you search for instrument DOI in data set, you're going to have a mixed bag. Some of them will be instrument, but a lot of them will be survey instrument, for example. So there's a lot more work to be done, but you know, we do need to, I just created one data set where they acknowledge the center, but there's no place to put them other than README file in the acknowledgement, but that's not machine actionable. So I think a repository has a lot more work to do in terms of creating a field. You know, we use a data set metadata schema, but we don't actually implement all of them. So it's a very limited set of metadata schema gets actually implemented into either generalist repository or domain-specific repository. So just wanted to bring that up. Yeah.
I mean, so on that topic, yes, what I presented here is around capturing the metadata to then generate that, in the case of instrument, that instrument PID. But yes, we also want, as I touched on at the start, another piece that we will want to do in our repository, and something we're talking about at the moment, is on the data upload form, we want that extra field. What was the instrument? And we'll have to look at how best to implement that. And it's not just for instruments, there are other PIDs coming through, which we're currently looking at as well. You'll hear of RAID. Terrible. So if you look at some of the other PIDs coming through, and RAID, which will come up this week, we also now are looking into, someone comes along, wants to publish a data set, and they want to say what was the project. They may already have that RAID ID, that RAID PID. Our repository at the moment does not, as part of that data upload, does not have a RAID or project ID, but we want to implement that. And the metadata is there, the metadata structures in the background are there to use. But as I said, using the platforms as is won't work. We need that development work.
Right. So can I add one more thing? So I'm going to just add a little more to that because PID density is not a PID yet. No. It's just a metadata schema. Yep. And then you can create a DOI using the metadata schema. You mentioned RAID, and RAID is another type of PID, kind of customized DOI, because it is a DOI, but certain metadata schema that creates a RAID. But until they have a registry, it's not implementable. So now US is implementing because we have a registry now. So if you're going for the registry route for PIDs, it's going to take a lot longer to, accomplish that, for example. So if repositories start to use existing resource type, add on that'll be a lot quicker. I know we have a Gray initiative, for example. Those are the leading repository for all generalist repository. If they can implement some of that, there'll be much quicker route to get this done.
Yeah. And that's that final point. We're asking that question.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else from the room? Okay.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. I have a question from the other angle, because we touched the technological part of the PID. However, at my university, we developed, let's say, research platform where the repository is a part of that platform. And we have the section research equipment, something like that. And it was like a few years ago. And we tried to, I don't want to use the word force researchers to register the equipment, but we used to do this, and we are not successful. So we even stopped registered. I mean, they didn't want to have another tab and another, metadata to, yes, exactly, to fill. And so I just wonder how you would like to approach that attitude to register another thing, because, they have to register publications, data, and now equipment.
I don't think our target would be researchers. Our target, if we put a system in place, our target would be the technical managers. So the technical people who are looking after those instruments. And it's very much advantageous to them to have their instruments registered with a PID. And then the idea then is for them to push the idea, hey, if you produce science, articles, whatever, using our instruments, can you please cite us and maybe give a blurb using that citable PID to cite it? Yes, of course, if a researcher wants to come along as well and register an instrument, maybe they've created a little bespoke instrument, absolutely. But the target and the easier wins will be with the technical staff.
Okay, next question.
Harun here. This question is not me as a government representative. I was an ex-academic, so this will be more of an academic perspective on what you just said. Sometimes it's more of a question of culture. So when you're an academic working in a lab, you have quite a bit of time to just register a field in the library, to be honest. So this is not me taking a dig at researchers, because I was one for a number of years. So the question there is, it's about the culture. How do you shift the culture so that an academic can put something in there? I think that comes down to more the use of the data. So if there is a use of the data, for instance, at ARDC, we are looking at how do we, there was a recent legislative change, and it introduced this factor of evaluating depth, excellence, and impact of Australian research. So depth for us could be something like what the institution does to enable excellent research. So if instrument is what the institution provides, then how do you track its use? So if that is one use of this data, then it could push the culture towards this adoption. So I don't think it's a question of would the academics be happy to fill an extra field. It's more a question of what use do you see for the data, which will enable the researchers to put that data in, which is what, as I said, as an academic, there is quite a bit of time to put that data in. It's just more about, the culture.
They treat the equipment very much personally. Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look at the online questions. What's the university's motivation to want to assign PIDs to instruments?
It's mainly, as I said at the start, from our perspective in the library, we're always looking to improve the fairness of data, for example. We want that provenance information. But on the flip side, a big push for this is, again, as I touched at the start, there's a lot of investment in instruments. We need to be able to track the return of investment on those, to those instruments. If we don't have PIDs, if we don't have a way to uniquely cite those instruments within the record, that's going to be very difficult. So it needs to be done.
Thank you very much. Next question. If not the library, then who? Is the expectation that the research completes the PID process, or is it best to keep the PID work behind the scenes and seamless for the researcher?
From my perspective, putting in the infrastructure to generate these PIDs, as I said, you could think it could sit with the library. We do already do the PIDs for other things. But it may be, for example, that it's the technical staff, it's the large technical people who have all of these instruments. They know this world, so maybe they're better placed to create these rich metadata records around, around instruments. So as I said, I've got it there as a question. We haven't answered that yet.
Thank you very much. Just wondering in the room, are there institutions that have got departments that are not the libraries doing this work? Just a show of hands. Which departments may I know?
Not departments as such, but different research cores, and so facilities. So we have different facilities that have their own research data management programs within the institution as a whole, and they will take on something like this separate from any of the institutional oversight.
Okay, got it. Thanks. And for you?
Very similar. My name is Joseph Gum. I'm currently employed by Inskip, or Science Information Partners, because I was laid off recently in the US. And so if anyone has a job, I am quite happy to talk. But I used to be at National Center for Atmospheric Research. So again, Matt Mayernick and all of them talking about FAIR instruments and facilities. We have our their data repositories, I'm no longer there, are not run by the libraries. And so I don't think any of the staff are trained librarians. Some of them come in from software development, some of them come in from a science background like I do. We are the people that are curating, attaching metadata, interacting with groups to try to figure out how to get these facilities and instruments PIDs in, because we also operate the facilities and instruments. So we're trying to provide a service to the larger national lab or organization as a whole.
Thank you very much for sharing. Couple more questions online. Is there any preference to have the PID at the dataset level or the individual file level?
I mean, from a practicality perspective, I can imagine that it would be at the data set level. If someone did want to assign the PIDs to the individual file levels, I'm sure that could be done through README files or a sort of a manifest file. But I don't think from a repository perspective, you would be doing it at that granular level. It would be at the data set level.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll just take one combination of the last two questions. Why do this in Elements? Have you looked at the discovery module in Elements?
We have. We at UNSW have not signed up to the discovery module. Yes, that would open up, for example, the public pages, but we have reasons for not going with the discovery module. Hence, we can't avail of the public landing page functionality.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's give Gerry a round of applause. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Next, we'd like to invite Assistant Professor and Research Data Librarian Kelsey Badger from Ohio State University. She'll be sharing about enabling the sharing of sensitive research data, the development of a new repository.
Hey. Sorry, everybody. Just wanted to make sure you were still awake. So good afternoon, everyone. Excited to be here. Again, my name is Kelsey Badger. I'm an assistant professor and research data librarian at the Ohio State University Libraries. And taken straight from the abstract for my presentation today, I want to talk to you a little bit about how our library at Ohio State partnered with one of our campus research centers to extend their existing data enclave service or trusted research environment service into a public access repository that's capable of mediating access to more sensitive types of data, predominantly from human subjects research, though any data that is inappropriate to be made entirely open access without additional protections. So I'm going to quickly, since we have about 8 minutes to do this, go through a little bit of background why we did this, some of the details of the repository, both the human infrastructure as well as the technical infrastructure, and then a little bit of our next steps. This is still very much a project in process, although we have started meeting with some researchers who are interested in using the service. We are not widely advertising it on our campus yet, as we still work through particularly some of the workflow considerations that I'll mention later. So first, that background section. First, what made this necessary? Second, what made it possible to collaborate on it? So what made this necessary? In the United States, as in many other areas, I am sure, data sharing is often driven by policies, particularly of the federal agencies that sponsor university research. Within the US context, our National Institutes of Health recently expanded their data sharing requirements in 2023, including encouragement that researchers should maximize responsible data sharing, including from studies with human participants. So an increased expectation that to the degree that it is responsible, that more of that data should be available. Our university has many impacted researchers under this new policy. We have over 100 departments submitting NIH proposals every year, and over $400 million per year in NIH awards. So there's a strong incentive for compliance in figuring out how to accommodate data sharing under this new policy. But thinking about what made it possible to think about repository development with one of our research centers, I do a lot of partnership from the libraries with other units on campus and try and think about these three categories when partnering with a new organization. First, looking for partners on my very large campus where there's some mutual benefit. So not approaching an organization just with the library's needs or even the campus's needs, but starting by what might be in it for this other unit on my campus. So in this particular case, our research center partner here had a contract renewal under one of their federal research contracts coming up that required some infrastructure updates to some of their existing technical services on campus. They actually approached the library initially for support in that. They wanted some library consultation on implementing a new metadata standard as part of those updates. But then as we began working together through those infrastructure developments, we realized that there was a way that we could grow intentionally in this direction to address kind of these larger campus needs. So starting with what is of direct and immediate benefit, but then thinking ahead to what are we already halfway to in working on these smaller goals, and how might we expand our partnership. So diving into the details of the repository a little bit more. First, who is the partner when I keep talking about this research center? So we have three groups who have contributed to the development of this project. First, again, the university libraries, that brings expertise, again, on those kind of federal data sharing policies, what is required, what are the resources to comply with it. Vast experience in digital object management and management of an institutional repository, including preservation of a variety of scholarly outputs. Our research center partner here is called CHRR. That no longer stands for anything at all. It is one of those acronyms that is the name itself. And they were a great partner on this project in particular because they have very advanced infrastructure for managing complex data. They have for over 60 years now continuously maintained a federal contract for a large-scale longitudinal federal survey. So they're very experienced with complex data and data management. And they have a very mature data security program, including an enclave service, which was very useful for this, because rather than allowing just direct file download of sensitive data, they offer the option of researchers being able to access data within a secure environment. We also recognized, though, that this is a complex problem with a number of legal and ethical considerations. And so we convened a cross-campus advisory committee as well that brings expertise in other areas,
including university policy as well as other federal and health policy, privacy requirements, as well as kind of a broader scope on the questions of curation and metadata to supplement what the libraries contributes. We selected CCAN as a tool for the development of this new repository. This is a widely used open source data management platform that is particularly common within government data management settings, including, for example, this is what the United States data.gov catalog runs on. And just a few of the features are surrounding our central CCAN shape there in order to give some indication of some of the features that we took into consideration in selecting it, including a very robust API, flexible backend storage, easy DOI integration, in-browser previews for data to allow users to interact with data before downloading it, very extensible, which was important for this because it does not out of the box support this differential privacy that our development team had to develop for it, and good custom theming. The basic workflow for this repository goes from public discovery to access conditions to approved use. So starting on the public discovery step, all datasets within the repository, as is typical for an open access repository, will have a DOI as well as public metadata that enable discovery and review prior to an access request. But the data itself is not accessible without going through the next two steps. So each dataset is individually assigned access conditions based on its level of sensitivity. And these defined conditions must be completed before a researcher can gain access to it. These might include things like a data use agreement, an ethics review, a technical security plan. Again, these are individualized to the specific needs of a data set. And once approved, access is granted either via direct download, or again, one of the great advantages of working with this particular research center is that they already maintain an enclave service that allows for additional security for an approved use. And closing out with a few next steps as we think about not only finishing getting this project off the ground, but where we may be going next and growing and sustaining the collaboration. So first, we are working on actually formalizing the partnership through a written memorandum of understanding between our two units. This is significant not only for sustainability of the repository service itself, but also hopefully sustainability of the partnership between our two units. Helping to make sure that it goes beyond the individuals who started it. We are working together just fine without an agreement, but the goal is that if somebody, say, leaves the university or retires, that a very fruitful partnership can continue. It's also been a very useful exercise because it's allowed us to work very intentionally together on scoping what the value of our partnership is and what we might want to move on to next. We convened I'm almost done. We convened a group between our two units to discuss what our priorities might be, which led to that second bullet point of exploring additional next steps, including additional ways that we might use the repository beyond just as a data sharing resource for researchers. So for example, we have started looking into how this might help the library in acquisition of proprietary data that has access conditions that has previously been a challenge in acquisitions where we may want to acquire certain business data but don't have the infrastructure ourselves within the library. And then lastly, we are hoping to engage related projects who are looking at this question of sensitive data sharing through a summit on public access to sensitive data. So I really hope that you will come and find me if you are also interested in this area or working on it. And on that note, I'm happy to switch to questions. I've put up a couple of items here that I would love to hear from you on, whether during the Q&A or later during the conference week. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kelsey. Any questions? Yes.
Sorry, I've already asked too many questions, but sorry. Something that questions related to your next steps.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, at the ARDC, we're looking at exploring how to demonstrate the impact of research. Do you think, what are your views on using repositories for that aspect to record information like proprietary data or other sort of data that could help demonstrating the impact of research?
Mm-hmm. I think that's always a valuable objective for looking at the holdings within a repository. I will say this repository won't at any point, it's not scoped to collect all of the data that our campus researchers produce. Just as many researchers use discipline-specific repositories, many also will have open access data that's appropriate for other open access data sharing mechanisms on campus. But certainly I think this is part of the puzzle, and keeping impact in mind is very important.
This is not a question. We already had a discussion about this. I just want to share, what we are doing very similarly. So we have an institutional data repository called Digital Commons Data Packer. And WashU is very heavily funded by NIH, and we have a lot of sensitive data. And we have a lot of centers who's been funded by NIH for decades, and they run this database because they cannot sign a DOI. So they sort of have their own unique URL, but it's not really PIT, for example. So with the new NIH DMS policy in place, they come to us because they need to publish their data set, get a DOI, for example. It's a part of the RPPRs. There's no other way around. So we actually help them. Our institutional repository is very unique because it offers both open and restrict access. So we create a metadata record so that we help them discover, their data set will be easily discovered with a lot more details than typical open access data because they cannot see what's in it. So we try to provide as much information as possible so they make an informed decision about the process. And so we created a metadata record, and if they have a process in place with they have their own committee, they have their own DOA, we can even make this metadata record open. So we put a link there, and all the downstream process will be handled by them. So it meets the funder requirement, and then we actually make the data set a little more open and easily findable and accessible by assigning a DOI.
Thank you. Question.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. It's very interesting for me. And I would like to ask you about your workflow and this approved use. I come from Poland, and in Europe, it's something not very much used, this sensitive level. So can you tell me a little bit more about this sensitive level, and who indicated that in that workflow process? It's indicated in the repository by researchers or by librarian?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, and is one of the pieces that we are still working on. When I say that this is a work in process, we are working to define an actual classification level. There are a few that exist, and I would love to hear about any that you may know of in addition, in order to have some common language around what sensitivity level means. And then we intend for this to be a little bit of a dialogue between the researcher and the repository staff, some of whom are librarians, some of whom maintain other roles. Again, since this is a collaboration between the libraries and a research center, we have a variety of individuals in different professional roles. But the idea, again, being that it's a collaboration between the researcher who is depositing and the repository staff in order to determine what is an appropriate classification level. But that question of how to define the classification levels themselves is part of what we're still working through, and that we imagine is going to have to be a little bit iterative over time as we start to see what types of data sets are actually brought to the repository to be shared. We have several working prototypes of what we expect to come to the repository and how the repository is going to be communicated to researchers. But I entirely expect that there will be unexpected uses as well.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll just quickly go through the last two questions online. The first is the repository for sensitive data the same repository for open access data?
It is not. At my institution, we do have an institutional repository, but historically have not used it for data, rather for other sorts of scholarly products like preprints or other items. And for open access data sharing, we have been institutional members of the Dryad Data Repository and have directed researchers there. So that's part of the reason why This project was scoped to be kind of from the ground up development of a new repository because we haven't been using our institutional repository for data.
Okay, thank you. Last one. Could you share a bit more on the rationale behind selecting CCAN as the repository platform? Since it's mainly used for government data, does your repository run into issues depositing and storing academic type of data?
That's a great question. That the latter part of that, does it run into issues, I think is yet to be seen. And hopefully no. I don't offhand expect that that will be the case because it still integrates just fine into other infrastructure within the academic data sharing community. For example, we're minting DOIs through DataSite using DataSite schema, so all of that is just fine. The selection of CCAN came not as much from the library, so my side, as much as my partners within the research center. The library put together several different options of commonly used platforms for research data repositories and allowed their development team to evaluate and make a choice. So I am unfortunately not the best person to speak in detail about that selection beyond what I shared on the slide.
Okay, just last one, Amy.
I'll meet you in the middle. Amy, MIT. Oh, and just like when you talk, can you say your name and where you're from? I can't tell who you are from the backs of your heads. Anyway, in terms of sensitive data classifications, there was work done by Maggie Levenstein out of ICPSR and Mercy Crosas when she was at HKUST in Harvard that you might find interested. If I recall, there were 5 different classifications and they had a whole system of approval about who could access based on qualifications and things like that.
Yes, great reference. That is one that we discovered at another conference as we take this on the road and try and learn from others in our community.
Thank you very much, Amy, for sharing. Yeah, let's put our hands together. Thank you very much, Kelsey. Yeah. I'd now like to invite our last speaker, Yasmin Ali from the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, to share about recognizing open research in Singapore. Yasmin, please. Thanks.
Okay, I'm aware that I'm between you and lunch, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet like me. I hope you can see me. If not, you'll hear me, okay? Okay, let's just go straight. So today's talk, okay, my name is Yasmin and I'm a librarian from Nanyang Technological University. I'm just going to refer to it as NTU because it's a mouthful. Okay, so my topic today that I'll be sharing with you is on recognizing open research in Singapore. How many here have been to Singapore? Wow! Come and look for us, okay, when you're next in Singapore. We'll give you a token. Okay, so let me start with the background. So in November 2022, NTU marked a significant milestone with the inaugural Singapore Open Research Conference. Not too sure if any of you had attended that one, but hopefully the next one you can come for. It was held in November 2022, and basically the conference set out with a clear vision to raise awareness on open research, which is a global movement that seeks to make scientific processes and research outputs more transparent, inclusive, and accessible to all. So as part of the program, we hosted the very first NTU Open Research Awards 2022. So the NTU Open Research and Open Science and Research Services librarians, me being one of them, and Su-Nee is the lead for our team. So we created this NTU Open Research checklist. So if you're interested, you can always scan this QR code. We'll share it with you. It's open access, okay? So you can take a look. Basically, this checklist is to support researchers in making practical changes that enhance the transparency, the inclusivity, and accessibility of their research processes. So later on, this checklist became an important resource for the NTU Open Research Awards as we translated it into the evaluation matrix. So NTU Open Research Awards in 2022 was launched by NTU, of course, to recognize and reward NTU researchers who have championed open practices, whether by making their research practices more accessible and reproducible, or by embedding openness into their teaching. So that year in 2022, we had one individual award presented to a Nanyang assistant prof, and we had a team award. And because we had so many contributions and nominations, there were 3 groups that received special mention. So all these details, if you're interested to find out, you can just go to our LibGuide. So later on, the NTU Open Research Awards grew into a national initiative. So it was expanded just last year in 2024, where it grew into a national level collaboration across the 6 local universities. Okay, I'm just going to name them. NTU, that's us, the National University of Singapore, Singapore Institute of Technology, Singapore Management University, Singapore University of Social Sciences, and the Singapore University of Technology and Design. So this, namely, we worked with all the university libraries to making this happen. Okay, and later on, we called it the Singapore Open Research Awards 2024. So this award aimed to recognize and reward Singapore researchers who have used open research to make their scientific contents, their tools and processes open, accessible, transparent, and reproducible, or they integrated it into their practice. So of course, the eligibility criteria, they could be principal investigators, postdoc research staff, or PhD students, but they have to be affiliated with the 6 local universities. And of course, they had to have research projects that have significantly demonstrated the adoption or that they promoted open research best practices in their own or across their subject disciplines. Okay, so this will include making their scientific contents, their tools, and processes more open, accessible, transparent, and reproducible. So, so the evaluation matrix, it continued to evolve. So from the awards in 2022, basically it just looked at evidences of sharing of open data, open codes, open methods, and other open research practices. But later on in 2024, we got smarter a bit, and then we started looking at this. We looked at a more refined criteria with a more defined concept. So it made the criteria and the awards more robust, and it was a more principled evaluation. So if you can see here, we looked at whether they practice pre-registration, or whether they submitted preprint, or whether they demonstrated sharing, and not only using of open data, but whether they themselves shared their open data or open methods and whatnot. Okay? And of course, whether they demonstrated any leadership qualities and advocacy efforts. So we had 2 takeaways from the awards. Firstly, to apply discipline-specific weightages to evidences. Secondly, to engage a more subject-diverse jury panel to strengthen inclusion. So this was the panel. We had 3 of them from three of the university libraries. And yeah, so this was for last year's. Okay, so I'm not going to go through this, but everything here is available on our LibGuide. So if you're interested, you can take a look at what are some of their practices that they shared and why they won. So we had a couple of winners from STEM, and we had 2 winners from NTU and 2 winners from NUS, and we also had 2 special mentions from one of each university. So I think it's quite a good number of nominations. Okay. Oh, and I'm also pleased to share that the awards and conference received the UNESCO Spotlight, which article was featured in the UNESCO Open and Inclusive Science Hub website. So the article lauded our efforts in fostering a culture of open research on a national scale through its recognition of researchers who have made significant efforts to make their scientific content, tools, and processes more open, accessible, transparent, and reproducible. Okay, so I've come to the end of my short presentation, but before I leave, I would like to plug the upcoming Singapore Open Research Conference next year, okay, in Singapore. So please scan this. We have a website up, but it's very bare minimal, but we do have a mailing list, so please do sign up to get updates on it, okay? And so with that, I'd like to say thank you for your attention and have a good conference ahead. We can go to questions?
Yeah, thank you very much, Yasmin.
Any comments, any questions? I've got one online. It says, great work. I might have missed it, but was the Open Research Awards a library-led initiative?
Yes.
Or did you collaborate with other areas in the university?
Wow, tough question. Initially, we collaborated, so it was together with another department, right, Su-Nee? I just joined, to be fair, I just joined. So yes, but then after that, of course, we collaborated with a few others.
So in the university, we're very fortunate to have good partnerships with various offices on campus. So that includes the Good Research Practice Office in the medical school, the Lee Kong Chian School of Medicine, the Research Ethics, Research Integrity and Ethics Office, the Research Support Office. So together we came up with the awards, yeah.
Yep. Thanks, Su-Nee.
Next question, how do these awards impact researchers' academic promotion? Are these recognized by the research office or count towards research?
This one beyond my pay grade to answer. Sorry, Su-Nee, can you take this?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so faculty members are always welcome to include research impact statements in their dossier, especially when they prepare for their promotion and tenure. So we have seen cases from the 2022 awards. We have seen award winners who actually mentioned that. So I'm not sure how much it helped, how big a role it played, but she got promoted.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see, any other questions? Any other comments? Okay, so thank you very much, Yasmin.
Thank
Let's
you,
give
everyone.
her a round of applause again. Yeah.